Hi there. What if you could use an oscillator as a kind of motor or a unique wave shape? Due to their foundations in keyboard synthesizers, we don't often think of oscillators as oscillating sounds. But also because the oscillator is a micro-sized signal, ranging from about 36 milliseconds at A0 to about 0.24 milliseconds at C8. We can still use this cyclic nature of the oscillator as a building block. It is a snapshot of a sound that contains a whole spectrum of information. In this video, I'll demo you Absynth's Import audio function, which lets you import wave shapes from audio files. While this is a unique option in Absynth 5, this video will offer sampling techniques with looping micro sounds. At the time of this video, I'm also finishing up on Cricket Chirps again. I realized that while chirps themselves are micro sounds, we still perceive a constant pitch. For example, here is the mole cricket sound again, where we perceive a hum. The hum is constant, but zooming in, we can see the chirps are micro-sized. The main lobe is about 11 milliseconds, and overall, this repetition is 24 milliseconds long, which is actually the same length a sampled waveform will take at 44.1 kHz sampling rate. Now the sampled waves must be 1024 samples long, which turns out to be enough for 2 of these chirps. If you use a good wave editor like Isotope RX, you can change the timeline to display samples. Currently I have 520 samples selected, but I'll change this to 1024. The reason we can fit 2 chirps in is due to half the sampling rate here of 22 kHz. I've prepared this export earlier by choosing Export Selection from the File menu. Note that you can use stereo files for this, but monophonic is more user-friendly in terms of editing. Then import the audio into Absynth by going to the Wave Editor and selecting Import from Audio File. There's the chirps. The last step is to set the playback rate on the oscillator module, which at a normal speed would be about 21.5 Hz. To find out the correct playback rate, the equation is simply the sample rate divided by 1024. Because it is now a foundational wavetable, further unique processing can take place. At a lower frequency, the aliasing tends to show up, so you can use a filter for that. Here's one chirp that was resampled to 44.1 kHz. Coincidentally, once resampled upward, the chirp matches the exact wavelength. Now the main harmonics are visible in the editor. You'll notice the characteristic frequency cluster that I outlined earlier. The import is high resolution in terms of over 60 dB of dynamic range. And as you can see on the spectrum, we have the upper 512 harmonics, while the editable spectrum is only the first 64. Generally speaking, the spectrum is optimal at the sampling rate of 44.1 kHz. A really cool trick is to play a note, then use the chirp wave as an LFO. Now we are just hearing a relative frequency modulation rather than an absolute frequency. In this example, I'll demo some resampling of a helicopter chop sound. Here at 48 kHz, I have an old recording of a helicopter passing that has a good source chop sound to build from. I'll just zoom into the chopper sound. Now this wave would be ideal except that it equals about 3000 samples. Sampling only 1024 results in a fragment of the main wave shape. So using the formula, I've resampled it to 15 kHz. Now watch the new spectrum shrink down. By using this snapshot, the helicopter sound can be resynthesized. It is not really important that I've lost frequencies above 3 kHz at the moment. Sometimes a dry, uninteresting snapshot is foundational because it captures the main building block. Again, just export the selection to a file. It is similar to an impulse type of wave, having a very flat spectrum, although it does have a noisy part to it. Finding the wavelength reveals the chopper speed to be 15.2 Hz at a sample rate of 15.6 kHz. I'll now demo a resynthesized sound with an anti-aliasing filter for downward pitch shifting. The second oscillator will act as an engine hum, which is about 4 times the chop frequency in oscillator 1. Using the granular engine with some randomness is great for subtle variation heard from a real environment. The supercomb is not essential, but it can create an interesting movement in the sound, as though the chopper is moving through an urban environment. now creating a Doppler effect. Well, I really enjoyed this one. If you did too, remember to leave a like or a comment. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. There's always so much more to explore. See you next time.